It's kind of interesting to know that the creative director of CounterSpy is actually a former graphic artist from Pixar. It's actually very apparent because the art style really reminds me of The Incredibles. But let's get to what CounterSpy actually is. It's basically a 2.5D side-scroller stealth game that takes place in an alternate version of the Cold War. The two superpowers are not the US and Russians but the Imperialists and Socialists. I'd rather not say which is which, but let's just say that the game makes both superpowers look equally insane in their nuclear war plans. CounterSpy takes a surprisingly light-hearted approach to its Cold War settings, evident by its smooth Pink Panther-like jazz music and its shell-shaded cartoony art style throughout the game. In the game, you are a spy working for a rather neutral organization called Counter, and your objective is to steal the nuclear war plans from both superpowers to find out what they are working on so that Counter can stop them. So you basically choose which country's secret base to infiltrate and avoid getting noticed or killed by guards along the way. You can also stealthily kill guards either via a takedown from behind or using your silenced pistol, also known as a diplomatic pistol. This is crucial because getting killed or alerting too many guards will result in the country's DEFCON level raise. Have the DEFCON raised above 1 and a launch countdown will start, in which you have to rush to the launch computer to stop the countdown. Thankfully, one of the ways you can reduce the DEFCON level is to point your weapon at an officer who is alone, whom you can tell with their distinctive white uniform. One cool thing about the bases is that they are procedurally generated, so the level layout will be different each time you play it, even though the core gameplay doesn't actually change. Each base you infiltrate will take about 10 to 15 minutes to get through, and it took me about 5 hours to finish the story. You'll probably finish it faster depending on your skill level, but it's a fairly short but sweet experience. Now, while CounterSpy is brilliant in its art style and presentation, the gameplay isn't without its frustrations. The game will occasionally switch to a third-person perspective when you're taking cover, and here's where some oddities in the gameplay start to appear. On one occasion, I was unable to kill a guard that was alerted to my presence because it's hiding behind a staircase that I can't go to because I'm locked in the 2D plane of movement, and since leaving the room would raise the DEFCON level, I decided to just restart the level. Another thing that can take you out of the immersion is when you are running and gunning in 2D movement. It doesn't matter whether the guards are in the foreground or background, you just hit him. But when you're taking cover and shooting in 3D mode, you suddenly need more effort to shoot the guards in their place, which I sort of understand that is necessary, but it makes the game feel like it is going against its own rules at times. And bear with me, another issue that I find a bit annoying is that the reticle that appears while you're in cover and not aiming is difficult to see where it is until you actually press the aim button because it doesn't contrast very well with the environment. But with all those issues mentioned, if you can look past all these problems, as well as some inconsistent AI issues which for some reason didn't actually bother me that much, and if you really love the art style and the music and the overall presentation, then CounterSpy is a short but enjoyable and entertaining experience. As I said earlier, CounterSpy looks really nice from an art style perspective. The art and production values look really sharp, even on the PS3 version that I'm reviewing. The cell shading and lighting of the character also looks really great, especially on the spy itself. That said, and this is from my experience with the PS3 version, be prepared to experience some frame rate drops, objects popping in the background, and some rare severe stuttering. The good news is that CounterSpy is a cross-buy title, which means if you buy one version on PSN, you also have the PS4 and PS Vita versions in addition to the PS3 version. If you can, I recommend you play this game on the PS4 as it runs in 1080p at 60 frames per second. Moving on to the audio, I initially thought that CounterSpy didn't use the LFE channel because the opening music didn't have any bass in the LFE, but turns out I was wrong. CounterSpy does sound very good in the home theater setup. Even though this is a 2D side-scroller, I didn't expect much sound from the rear channels, but turns out that the sound mix does occasionally use it. I also really like that 60s spy music. Speaking of bass, the LFE is mainly used for the assault rifle sound and explosions, but I have to admit that the explosions didn't have that super low deep bass that most movie sound mixes have, but it still sounds pretty good. Just don't expect that kind of high quality action movie sound for this game. Well, CounterSpy isn't without its issues, and if you don't already like the game's overall aesthetic feel, you'll probably be more annoyed at some of its gameplay problems. But if you do like the aesthetics, it should pretty much overcome all these issues, and if you are in that league, CounterSpy comes with a solid recommendation.